All right, so we're gonna learn how to read music. Cool, we need to know three things. First, we need to know where the notes are on our instrument. So if I say let's play an A or a C sharp, you know where to find those on your instrument. Number two is knowing how to read rhythm. Now, this is probably the trickiest of the three things, but the idea itself isn't that hard. It's just it takes a lot of practice to get good at it. So yeah, reading rhythm, number two. And the third idea that we need to understand to be able to read music, the one we're looking at in this video, is how to read pitch. And reading pitch is probably the easiest of the three concepts. So let's have a look at that right now. So this is a grand staff. Now we call those top 5 lines the treble staff, and the bottom 5 we call that bass. And that's indicated to us by those 2 squiggles at the start. So in this video we're going to look at how to read treble. Now that's like piano and guitar and singers and trumpet players and violin players and all kind of the higher sounding instruments. And the lower part of the grand staff, that's for bass. So they're your lower sounding instruments. So either your left hand on piano or a bass guitar or a tuba or a Barry clarinet or a Barry saxophone, like big ones, low sounding instruments. Anyway, in this video, we're going to look at how to read treble. But knowing how to read treble, you can basically read bass. It's kind of the same thing. You've just got to flip around the letters a little bit. It's not that different. Okay, so this is our treble staff, and we know that it's our treble staff because we have a treble clef at the start of it. That guy right there, you see that? Yeah, that's our treble clef. Some people call it a G clef because that dot is on the G line. Okay, so here's a note. Notes have basically 2 parts. They have a head and they have a stem. And what we do is we can put our head of the note on either lines or in spaces. We can also place them below the staff. And if we do that, we have to just draw in imaginary lines as if the lines kept going to indicate how far down we're actually going. And we can do the same above it. So we have to draw in like imaginary lines. They're called ledger lines actually. We draw those in. And then that tells us how far up we actually do have to go past those 5 lines. That is our core of reading like treble. Okay, so that bottom note and that top note, I'd go as far to say as 90% of all music in treble is written between those 2 notes. So if we learn what all those notes are, then we can kind of just read pitch. So I've broken this down into 3 things to remember. And let's have a look at those 3 things so we can memorize all those notes with ease. Okay, so this first idea is every green bus drives fast. So as I said before, we can put notes on lines, and each of those lines represents a note. What we do is we take the first letter of each of those words, and then they represent each one of our lines in our treble staff. So the bottom line represents E, second line, G, third line, B, fourth line, D, fifth line, F. So if we get a note on our middle line, we look over and that means that note is going to be a B. Now it's not just any B, it's a specific B. It's actually B3. But for now we can just think of it as B. If we move that note down 2 lines, we are now on the E line. Is this kind of making sense? Our note head represents what line we are on. If we go to the top line, what note's that going to be? It's going to be an F. Yeah? Making sense? Cool. So yeah, to remember the notes of each of our lines, we remember the phrase, every green bus drives fast. We take the first letter of each of those words, and they are the notes for our lines. Okay, number 2. As we said, we can have notes in spaces. So how do we remember those letters? Well, it's actually really easy. They spell a word. They spell the word face. F-A-C-E, from bottom to top. Now, just like with our lines, we place our note head in the space, and if it's in our first space, we look over and it's an F. If we move it up to our third space, it's going to be a C. Our top space, it'll be an E. Making sense? So yeah, number 2 is face, or face in the spaces, just to make it rhyme and more memorable. And our last point is how to remember the 2 notes below and the 2 notes above. And in my mind, you just kind of remember it. It's a C, it's a D, that's a G, that's an A. Seedy-Ga. That's kind of how I remember it. C-D-G-A. I don't know, just remember those 4 letters in that order. Yeah, so 4 letters. You just remember 4 letters. That's what you got to do. So yeah, there are 3 things. Every green bus drives fast, face in the spaces, Seedy-Ga. All right, so now I'm gonna flash up a quick shot of just a bunch of random notes on a treble stuff, and I want you to figure out what they are. Using that, I write it down somewhere, I don't know, do what you do. All the answers will be in the description below this. So how do we get good at this? Well, reading music is the best way to do it. But if you want to go a bit harder than that, then just look up Bach sheet music in Google Image and just start reading. Like, it's all pretty achievable and it actually sounds pretty good. That's just how I learned how to read. Like, straight up. I just typed Bach sheet music into Google Image. And then I just did that. I got to do that a bunch. Learn how to read music. Anyway, do this worksheet. Take it easy.